how to build a talent pipeline that we need. So that will be the focus of our conversation today. But at Julius, we work with companies and trade associations and utilities across the country on their workforce needs.
Great. Daniel, do you want to?
Yeah, maybe just to flesh out the personal intro, maybe a little bit more of the backstory. Matt and I, and Julius kind of came out of Pearson Education. It's a large global education company. Most folks know it as a textbook publisher, but Matt and I ran their online learning division, where we helped colleges, workforce development programs kind of fill their pipeline, and started working with employers primarily in healthcare and financial services, and saw an opportunity to really do it in the kind of energy infrastructure space. So we're we're kind of generalists in the world of education, particularly online. But what we're going to be talking about today is, the some of the tools of workforce development that we're bringing to bear in partnership with Patricia in service of this program.
Fantastic. And then Audrey Knox from ICAST, our other partner, if you want to say a little bit about your role.
Hi, sure. And Rob Foley, who's with us as well, is from ICAST too, so he can fill in any gaps. ICAST provides green retrofits for multifamily affordable housing, and we engage in workforce training and development, and so that's we're sub on this program, and we'll be specifically, we're involved in the supporting the development of the curriculum the online curriculum that goes along with this program on cold climate air source heat pumps.
Great.
And I'm Rob Foley with ICAST, and I'm on the technical team at ICAST, the engineering team. I'm also hold our licenses for our various different contractor licenses, including we just got a mechanical contractor's license in Denver. We didn't do that so that we could become a mechanical contractor. We did that so that we could chase the staggering amount of incentives that the city of Denver is providing, especially for heat pumps. So we are always looking for contractor partners for our actual work. But we do a little bit of everything, including doing a lot of heat pump installs throughout the country, mainly centered in Utah, New Mexico, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. So we're trying to lead the charge and drag everybody along with us in the adoption of heat pump technology, beneficial electrification, carbon reduction, all of those categories. That's the short story.
Fantastic. And there isn't anybody else from our group. So most of you know me, but Patricia Rothwell, I'm the Executive Director of the Energy Efficiency Business Coalition. Connie is on the line as well. Connie Newber is our Membership Manager in Marketing. And I'm going to just kick off and give the basic overview of how we got started with this project and the EEBC and our contractors and our distributors and manufacturers, the opportunity that we want to bring workforce and create this hiring pipeline directly into your organizations and create a loop so that you have that first opportunity to hire the graduates from the programs that both Julius Education and ICAST, we've developed together. So to back up really quick, EEBC, before we entered into the pandemic in 2019, in the beginning, when we were meeting in person, we had our quarterly membership meeting. And in that meeting, we did what we called a RIG, like the rapid information gathering. And we put everyone, 55 people in groups of 3, and we did a survey and we asked some questions. And one of them was, what's the number one thing that EEBC can do for you in your business as a member? And 50% said, get the younger generation into my business. I have no idea how to get them into my business. So from there, it's always been percolating for me, like when and how do we do this for our members and how much value is there for them? So from there, fast forward, there was an opportunity for a grant with the city of Denver, and it's called the Green Jobs Grant, or the Green Jobs.
Good green jobs.
Thank you. That's what I was after. Good green jobs. And we all three partnered together and put a proposal in, and we won. So out of 17 applicants, there were 6, and we're one of them. And our idea was to pilot a little bit of a different model in the marketplace. And what we want to do is recruit the not only younger generation, but anyone who isn't planning on going to college, all different, has skilled, wants to upskill, wants to transfer into more of a green construction industry. I'm not a real big fan of the word green. I think it's high performance, but that's the vernacular that everybody's using on that side. And what we did is created 3 pieces. Julius Education is doing the recruiting out in the marketplace, to bring in the numbers that range from 4,250, different people into an orientation training, and it's electronic and it has a platform for us to help manage somebody into our industry, have them understand it. They can explain more about that, but our jobs aren't necessarily the most easy jobs, right? They're hard work. Sometimes they're dirty, it's hot, it's cold, those types of things, but they're really good jobs. And if somebody has the right, behavior interest in wanting to, create something, see something done, there's other tangibles to the people working in our industry. And really exciting, if you want to help save the planet, get into the construction industry, the buildings is where it's at. Is kind of what it comes down to. And the younger generation that appeals to. So we're looking at how do we bring them in, orientate them so there has a better retention rate as they get placed in your companies, as also looking to find out what you're looking for. And that's what we're going to be asking for from the group today. Then the next piece is there's 2 paths. You go through the orientation. It is for all of our industries in the EEBC, for insulation, air sealing, lighting, commercial lighting especially, and HVAC heat pumps and weatherization. So we're basically taking our action groups and saying, if you are participating in an action group and a member of the EEBC, then you have the opportunity to get these graduates from these programs and create a hiring pipeline is our goal. It's a 3-year grant, so we're going to be doing this for 3 years. And upfront, there's going to be more work for getting feedback into the curriculum and the types of jobs that you want to hire for and what you need. And then once someone comes in, does the orientation, they also have a second pathway they can choose, which is through ICAST that Audrey and Rob are talking about. And that is to do heat pump technician training. And when you graduate, then again, that's where it's at for our heat pump, HVAC manufacturers, distributors, and contractors that we want to nurture them into our industry and bring them to your door. And so the role after all that for the EEBC is that we are the recruitment and the job placement team. So we're looking to find out from you, how do you want to receive these graduates? How do you want to interview them? How do you want to be introduced? And we have some ideas for that too. I'll hand it off to Daniel and Matt Evans to talk about what they're looking for in their portion of recruiting and developing the curriculum for everyone.
Just asking an obvious question. This is Sean, by the way, with Mitsubishi HVAC. This is for Colorado specific, correct?
Only for Colorado. Mm-hmm. And only for Colorado EEBC members that are on the action groups. They have to be in an action group to contribute, to develop a program to get the employees out of it.
Got to work to play.
Yeah.
Sean, maybe your question, we do work in other geographies, but the funding of this is applied, but the solution, what we're going to walk through is a little bit of what we call our accelerator programs, which is the ability to get somebody who maybe has heard of the industry, but probably hasn't, or it's still trying to answer key questions about what would it look like to work in the space, and what are the roles that they would target. How do we get somebody from that stage of kind of top of the funnel, unaware state into an aware state, into trained, into placed, and the kind of the tools that we deploy. So Patricia, maybe I'll say a few other bullet points, and it might be good to do
Absolutely.
introductions otherwise. But maybe just to prime what we're going to be spending the rest of the time on is what we'll be doing at Julius is building out this program that helps accomplish that objective of moving people through that funnel. So there's partners we have. The GED is probably the highlight of that, the high school equivalency exam, where we go out and help target new diverse audiences for these pathways. And then we put them into a program that helps them understand what the jobs are, help them understand if it's a good fit, and then helps provide some foundational, quote unquote, training, which may be terminology, concepts, and then gets them to kind of a job marketplace where we'll connect them to you. And so today, what we're trying to do is figure out how to get your advice on how to start building the specific content for this piece of work into our program kind of infrastructure. So we will walk you through that in more detail, but maybe that provides a little bit more context, what we'll pick up. But maybe we could start with introductions for everyone else. Patricia, if that works.
Sean, you introduced yourself. I also want to comment that Sean is a co-chair of the Heat Pump Action Group for the manufacturers and distributors. And then also Matt Baker is on that committee as well. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Matt Baker with Daikin Comfort Technologies, manufacturer of heat pumps, and particularly interested in this. My background, I was a program manager for workforce education and training at PG&E for a number of years back in the 2010 era. So excited to see the new era of training and engagement tactics.
Awesome.
I'll just add a little bit on to I'll follow Matt's suit that I came up through weatherization and energy audits. It was early in my career, so I did weatherization for I did training and at Red Rocks for Northwest COG, a bunch of the various agencies around the state of Colorado, and had several, I think up to 11 different certifications, just kind of around the BPI, thermography, HP, I guess it's HPB was the certification, etc. So, and now I actually still do trainings for the weatherization agencies in Colorado. I'll be speaking at Energy Out West later this summer as well. So just really just fantastic groups of folks, and looking at how to train, get people into the jobs, into the positions, and realize the values that come along that are, over and above what someone might think of as a typical job. So thanks for everything that ICAST does as well. I actually partnered a little bit with ICAST in my early days as well.
Great. Chris, I'm not going to say your last name. Cavallo.
Yes, I'm with Clear Result, and I work for the XL quality control, energy rebate, that whole program there. And I just like to listen in and see what's going on in the industry, hear what the guys who are doing the work have to say about things. We're always looking for ways we can help out the process in general, not just for XL's sake, but for average homeowners and for contractors. We do a ton of contractor management. So, but I seem to spend more of my time talking to insulation and air sealing contractors. So I do like to participate, or at least listen in on what the HVAC contractors are doing and have to say about things.
Great, thank you. Let me just look if there's anybody else. I think that's it.
I think there was one more person and he dropped off because he was afraid you were going to ask him who he was.
I was looking, I'm like, okay, I think that's it. Great. Yeah, and part of, I think, with some of the group that we have today, it's interesting because we had 3 contractors signed up. Mountain Air Mechanical, Bishop Plumbing and Air, and they're not on, but they're contractors, right? And so I think that with this group here, I think we can get some good discussion. But earlier, before we jumped on the call, we were talking about getting the direct contractor information, you know, feedback of what they're looking for. But it also might be that we work with through the distributors, and the distributors, you know, do some groups of contractors. Or maybe we have to do one-on-one. I don't know. We'll have to see and set up specific meetings, but it's harder to get the contractors
Well,
pinned down, or 6:30 in the morning, you know.
well, certainly we appreciate you guys joining in. Maybe we can just kind of drill in on things if that works for you. Sean and Matt and Chris, we'll try to get you on the hook later, get you off your listening in status. But basically, Sean and Matt, it sounds like you also have awesome backgrounds to help us think through this. So I don't know, Matt, maybe start with you. Would be out of the range of roles that could provide good on-ramps to individuals, we're trying to identify what would be high priority positions to feature. And generally we think about coming up with a basket of, let's say, 6 roles where we can give people enough options for that they can see themselves into the different roles. And then we try to think about how to help match somebody's interest and aptitude into those roles. And we can show you a little bit of an example of what this looks like. But if we just said, hey, where should we direct the flashlight? Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what comes to mind, or where you would tell us to start?
Is that a general question to the?
Yeah, general question to the group. Now,
Yeah.
Given that you guys are the 2 key, I was going to pick on one first, but Sean, why don't you, I don't know.
I'll
Whoever
jump
wants to go
in.
first.
I'll reflect back on a previous position that I had with a HERS rating company down in Arizona, and being on the leadership team down there. One thing that really stood out was being able to utilize some free or extremely low cost, easy tools to identify people that really not only have an aptitude, but an interest, right? And so just for me, I took decades to find my sandbox, right? I took a class when our funding came around in 2008, and it was on energy auditing. I'm like, hey, this might be kind of interesting. I've been volunteering with the Green Building Guild for a while, and this is kind of cool. I took that class, and that was it. I was hooked, right? And I think it's trying to find that aha moment, trying to find the hook. So when you're talking about, pointing the flashlight, or as Patricia mentioned, kind of behavioral alignment, there's some really good, easy tools out there, and maybe you already have them and employ them, but it's got to be a first step for sure, to weed out the folks that are like, meh. So.
Understood. Matt, maybe any thoughts, maybe just off the bat, and then we can drill in on some of the role definition.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I appreciate. I don't know that I have the insight right now to answer what are those, those missing roles that are needed the most. But I think gathering that question and being able to ask our partners is something that I can do. It's a question that I would like to take to our dealer network, and potentially even our distributors, and get their insights for things that they're hearing from their contractors, right?
Awesome.
Real quick clarification. When you say missing roles, are you saying what positions might not be on the list or might not be on the
we're looking for high priority opportunities to place people. So generally that's either it's ubiquitous, it's hard to fill, or projected growth is outpacing, projected supply. And again, where we're trying to curate a subset of these, that we create more of a seamless pathway where we can,
Got it.
yeah.
So just trying to identify the high priority roadmaps, if you will, for each kind of, potential position, or what that tree, what that branching looks like.
Exactly.
All right. So there's some obvious characteristics that are, common to all construction, right? Likes to be outside, likes to be self-directed, likes to work with their hands, right? And then there's probably a couple of things that are specific to HVAC that are critical. Likes to solve problems, right? That is fundamental, right? And if you're the kind of person who could be happy as a framer, for example, you're not going to be happy as an HVAC technician, because a framer is doing the same thing every day, all day long, and they're just happy doing that, right? So it's a different mindset, it's a different mentality. Even if you're just an HVAC installer, right? You're still you're dealing with a lot of different things, and you're thinking on your feet. Every installation is a little bit different, right? So independence and problem solving skills is a big filter, right?
Super helpful, Matt. I'm inclined to show the front end from the GED.
Yep.
So this will give you an example of the architecture that we're going to be deploying in service of the Good Green Jobs program. And this came about where the GED serves around, I think it's like around 1 million test takers. And again, you get all sorts of individuals, folks who didn't complete their high school, their first time, folks who are new to the country, folks who are incarcerated, who are kind of reentering. And the GED is increasingly interested in building direct pathways into job opportunities. And so we've been working with their leadership to highlight opportunities that we would say is kind of in the built environment or infrastructure space. And what I'm going to show you is a program we have running with a few GED locations to help highlight these opportunities. And when we say this is kind of the front end of the experience, this is what a student participant uses to understand, make sense of the industry and make sense of opportunities. So Rob, your filtering criteria is exactly what we would build into this experience that would lead people to the roles we would highlight.
So these are folks, as Daniel's saying, who may never have heard of, jobs in any of these sectors, that are interested in learning more.
So you're seeing a mobile experience here that we built out. This is around, it highlighted the green aspects of the opportunity. That was a huge selling proposition with the audience when we kind of tested it out. But again, we're not, that's only a feature of the content. And so what we do when we launch these programs is replace all the content you're seeing with new content aligned to the geography and the roles we're trying to fill. But if you can use this as a shell or an example of what we're trying to build out. What we're doing here is highlighting some of the key messages about opportunity, about what is required. This be respected. Patricia, we were on a call earlier with Patricia talking about, hey, there is a real sense of satisfaction that can come from these opportunities. So what we started with in the front, this is one of our advisors. Her name's Kelly Blair Hart. She is a GED instructor and is actually on the board of GED Corporate, which is really interesting perspective. But we work with her and her classes. And so she was nice enough to help use her classes as kind of a focus group for this and help us build out content. So again, this is very much kind of TikTok style intro. I'll let it roll for a little bit here. You can see.
I'm Kelly. You want to make more money? Who doesn't, right? I'm a GED graduate. I'm also someone that knows what it's like to struggle and not make the money needed to thrive or even survive. You might think it's your education level holding you back from making good money. Perhaps you think you might need a college degree to earn a higher income. I know I used to. It doesn't have to be like that.
So again, this is tailored to the GED audience, but these are the themes that kind of rated really highly. So this is running today. We have some testimonials where we helped place some people. This is where it gets into the interest. And so Rob, in terms of your identification, there's probably some gating things that you need at a minimum, but this places people into technical and kind of non-technical pathways based on this, again, TikTok style quiz. So a response, this will then serve up, again, some familiar role opportunities here. What we're doing here is we're rewriting the job and the description to make it more understandable. So instead of hitting people with a job posting for a building maintenance worker or HVAC trainee, again, we're just trying to slow it down to kind of walk them into the opportunity. So anyways, these are the selected occupations that we would serve up to somebody. And then each of these, so I should slow down here. Each of these, again, has the, here's the on-ramp opportunity, but here's the progression opportunity. So we can kind of sell the career in the career pathway. And then this is one of our other team members, Joe. He is a registered electrician and also ran a community college program. So now he's drilling in on the specific role here.
Seeking a job where you get to work with your hands and learn a variety of useful skills, a building maintenance worker position might be just the ticket. What's more is you only need your GED and pay typically starting at $30,000 to $35,000 a year with no experience, and upwards of $50,000 to $60,000 a year if you have some experience.
So he'll go on to talk more about the job and what it is and the features. What we then do is get people to register, and then we start a content experience where we can put a advisor, somebody can interact with people, candidates, to say, hey, do you have questions? You want to talk through it? We can also start some of that foundational training, like what is a building envelope, or what are systems in a building. And then we can also provide some of the employability skill training. So how do you have a conversation with a potential employer, if you need a resume, or how to interview. So basically this is a template or an example of what we're trying to build out. So what we're trying to hone in on here is what should be those roles that we're targeting at the end, and then how do we align the content to get there. So hopefully that was helpful to kind of flesh this out a little bit. I don't know if you have any Matt, Sean, Rob, Chris, any comments about the approach generically, or again, guidance about what should be on our minds as we embark on building out the Colorado EEBC program?
Well, one question I have that I don't really care is how do you connect with people, right? I mean, that's your job, is figuring out how to get people to do that. So, it looks like a fabulous tool, right? I mean, as important as finding good candidates is screening out the ones that this is just going to waste their time and our money.
That's right. We hope this plays that it's a gating for some, and it's kind of an accelerant or the aha for others. Yeah. That's where we've been working with partners like the GED. And so we're actually working with, Kelly, who you saw in the video, she's actually helping us with an instructor's guide that says, hey, you're learning algebra on the GED. Here's how you apply it in the world of work, or here's the critical thinking skills. Here's how you apply that in problem solving. So that's one example of where we're trying to create this pathway. So we work with other community groups as well. But instead of just treating it as like a marketing, I think the traditional approach has said, hey, yeah, we'll find people, we'll have a 1 hour webinar or whatever. We'll have a one day where you can come check it out. How do we have a more persistent interaction with a target audience? And how do we do more of this nurturing, / filtering to get people to the quote unquote program experience? So again, the longer term horizon here on the grant opportunity allows us to build more of a target audience for this.
Kind of back to my first comment about how do you do aptitude testing light during this process?
Sorry, Matt.
Well, I was saying, so what, that's a excellent question. What comes to, what kind of aptitude? I think one of our questions was really thinking about what that line needs to look like to be relevant. So maybe it's not the ideal candidate, but it's enough that you want to take them seriously through the screening or interview process. And Sean, if you had any thoughts about, what is that, I don't know, minimum level, or it's not here, but it's a here, and it makes me, for a hiring employer, that would be enough kind of thing. Give a sense for kind of what that criteria needs to look like, or what that skills aptitude would need to be to make someone an interesting candidate that was worthy of time for interviewing for an employer.
Yeah. Well, I'm the last person you want to use to design a scientific method test. But I can certainly I can send some, in fact, if you're okay, I'll take a few minutes and go grab a few links from tools that I've used in the past that are pretty good. And then there's even one that's like, it's literally like, it's kind of a joke, but not really. It's like a 2-second personality test, or a 2-question personality test, right? And it's just, it's just chunking people out on, which quadrant are you in, and that kind of thing. And even to a more robust one, that's more of a, it's Myers-Briggs, but it adds a 5th criteria, and it adds a lot of nuance. And instead of just saying you're an ENFP or what have you, you're looking at, well, you're 60% E and 40% I, right? And so there's more. I'm not saying it has to go to that level. I'm just saying that there's some pretty good tools out there that could be employed at some point along the way, and maybe drop one and progressively a little bit further. And so as you sort of weed out that first, it's an iterative process. First 50%, like, I'm not interested, thanks. Oh, this is interesting visually, but it's not a match for me personality wise. Weed out that next 25%, etc., and iterate. So I'll go find this.
That would be fantastic. And part of it is always the question with assessment is like, how do you interpret the results? So I think it's also that how do we use this to make good decisions? But I think your approach of saying it fits well with our funnel idea, where it's like, let's say it was something lightweight up front. People love those types of experiences as well, to learn more about themselves. And then incrementally, we can ramp up the level of sophistication with which we're doing, assessments, so to speak.
It seems to me like there's a couple types of assessments you want to do. One is an interest assessment or a competency assessment, right? And that's to get rid of anybody that's a bad candidate. But then there's also a kind of a skills assessment of what training do you need, right? Which is a different game altogether.
Well put.
So I'm gonna, just to give a little feedback too. When I left Owens Corning, I spent 1.5 years working with insulation contractors, and there's about 300 different assessments, and we selected 2, and we're also working with Crosslands. They're a GC nationally, and so we were doing a behavioral assessment, very different than a personality assessment. So it's basically how you're wired to work. And we developed profiles that we could actually tell you who is in the zone, close to the zone, and out of the zone for a particular job. And then we also could tell you that the insulators that do bats just are like framers. They want to kind of do the same thing over and over again. But then if you're going to go to blown in insulation, you need a little bit different type of personality. The guys who are doing the spray foam, they are creative and they want to be really independent. And so but they all like, and then there's a social element of that. They don't like to be social as in like a salesperson will go into a room and talk to people, but they're very social within their tight group. Like it was that kind of stuff. But the thing that we found out is the 2K metrics: how fast can you go and how much quality are you wired to do? And if you could get people in the zone so it was but it's a 2-question test. That's it. Takes 5 minutes. And it literally you just go like fill in the bullets. That's it. And then the other one was a common sense test. And Crosslands, with their 2,000 employees, so that common sense test was better than any other test that they used.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Powerful.
mhm. So there's options, but those are some we use.
Chris, maybe just to check in if you're still listening in, just to see if this was kind of what you had in mind, or any high-level thoughts.
I didn't have anything specific in mind. I just, I like to be involved in conversation, and this is an interesting one when it comes to the whole world of electrification. We all know that, heat pumps are the next big thing, or current big thing. And yeah, people need to be available to do the work. I've run into that, more than a few times in the last few months, where people wanted to get some work done and couldn't find anybody who could do the work, or couldn't find, or the people they're working with couldn't get their hands on the equipment they wanted to, or something like that. There have been some roadblocks, and I know that certainly getting more people involved in the industry from an installer standpoint and a career standpoint is definitely an issue. I think you're on the right track as far as like what needs to happen here, and how exactly it's going to go down. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. But hopefully the track you're on is going to be the right one, and get people involved, because I think it's important. And
With those comments, just to verify, I think, just from your experience in the field, like Rob, Sean, Matt, and Chris, how is having this loop, do you think this and getting contractors to participate, how do you think that's something that they are going to want to be doing, be motivated to be a part of, to get employees that are maybe a better retention rate than they can get off the street?
Well, I think the smart contractors are going to be desperate for that, right? I mean, everybody's got major shortages, and everybody's asking the same question: how do we solve this, right? So even if you've got bad ideas, if you're volunteering to help them try to solve it, that's better than begging the VOTEC instructor to send their best students to them.
And so also I relate this to being working for Owens Corning for 10 years, right, with my contractors and my distributors. And they would typically say, so I was just curious from your perspective, what you think your contractors, the amount of, they would say, hey, we used to get like 10 people a month or 15 people a month that would show up on our doorstep to apply for a job. And in 2017, they were getting 3, 5, like the numbers went down significantly because there was so much need. So I'm curious, that metric is going to be important to know how much volume we need for 25 contractors that are getting, or that are taking, graduates from the program through the pipeline. And if they go through orientation and they're going to go into the heat pump tech side. So I'm just curious how much the heat pump contractors or HVAC contractors have any idea how many people are applying and they're hiring each month.
I don't have nearly as much contact and conversation with HVAC contractors as I do insulation, air sealing, and audit contractors. But my impression has always been that a certain percentage of those HVAC contractors, this is based on, the limited interaction that I have had through the Excel program, some percentage, maybe 30%, maybe 40%, I don't know exactly what, I'm guessing, will basically just continue doing it the way they've always done it. They don't want to change. They don't want to do anything new. And then they'll just like age out of the program and age out of their business and go, okay, I'm retiring now. I'm going to shut it down. That's just an impression. Like I said, I may be way off base. I have no idea for sure. And then, but there are a good number of contractors that I've had conversations with or are interested in, getting into newer technologies, better ideas, bringing in younger people to do the work to keep a business more alive and more actively involved in whatever issues they are that they can make an impact on. Electrification being obviously the biggest one that we're all thinking about.
And I think that's the members of the EBC are, they're more the 20-80 people, right? The 20% that are caring about those things. And so
Yeah,
that gives us kind of, I think, a great opportunity. I think one of the other pieces when you were talking about their interest areas, Daniel and Rob, you said, what do they need to have? Like from the lighting committee, like they rattled off things like environmentally oriented, saving the planet, saving energy and carbon, see a difference in the impact that you're making. Like it was all the things that we're talking about for the younger generation that would attract them. But I think there's a stumbling point in this that our contractors don't talk about themselves that way, right? So there's an area where our contractors don't explain. From the insulation side, I'll go for that. Hey, when you put, because I work for Owens Corning Pink Panther, when you put the pink goo in this hole over here, do you realize that you're saving X amount of carbon on the planet per house? Like your job is super important. Nobody tells them that, and so I think there's some other kind of pieces of we can bring the employees in because they have that interest. So I think we might have to include, like in the modules, an explanation of what are the energy trends, what is happening. This is the fastest transition in history, and working in these types of companies is where you can make a big difference, no matter what level you are. If you're an installer on the front line, right? So you instill that and give them that thought, even if their company doesn't drive that. But I think the companies are going to have to see that same video to realize that's what they're doing. Is that?
Yep.
Think that's true? Not really, or yes. I see Matt shaking his head a little bit.
That's another question to the room.
Yeah, so I would say that I agree. My experience with training is in the past was we built great things and still it was hard to get them to come, right? So having the right training, having the right setup, what I learned we had to do was take a step back and say, but how do we get people to want to come here and to engage, and what is interesting to them? I think seeing the videos of showing the opportunity is a wonderful approach, a wonderful start, because it's starting with what do these potential candidates really want, and not just trying to tell them, oh, it's a good, it's good education, it's free education, all these things that we see as value from the provider standpoint. We really have to spin it on its head to figure out what potential candidates want, and that's how we engage them, I think.
And Matt, what were the couple insights from that? Can you say a little more about what you found as the way to, reframe it as
I can give examples that don't exactly translate here, but I worked in energy efficiency, and so everything that we did was all about, you can save energy, or you can be an energy saving contractor, right? You can be an energy efficiency contractor, you can be an insulation installer, or building scientist if you want. That wasn't really interesting to a lot of people, other than for us who worked in the industry.
Right.
It was incredibly fascinating and very exciting, and we're energy nerds. We love that sort of thing, and so we were really excited about it, and therefore we assumed that others would be as well. But that just didn't get the interest of the workforce that was out there that we were trying to train. So when it came to trying to upskill HVAC contractors, we couldn't just tell them you can install, you can learn about the highest performing equipment and how to use heat pumps and all of this sort of, all of these different things, but they didn't really care about it. What they cared about was, are their customers asking for it? Are we making it easier for them to sell something? Are we like, we had to think about it in terms of what they actually were looking to do. And at the end of the day, the HVAC contractor, they're looking to sell more jobs. They're looking to make money. They're looking to get home on time. They're looking to make their day less hectic. So incorporating those aspects in our pitch to them and then saying also, we have this free training that's provided by the utility company. It's paid for by ratepayers. You know, then we could go into that, but we had to lead with something that was actually interesting and engaging for them.
That makes sense.
That help?
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, maybe to summarize, super helpful. I mean, this is exactly what we're trying to instantiate here, just build out into the program and how to bring it to life. So
yeah,
obviously your wealth of experiences here. And I think your offer to go back and figure out what's in demand and how do we circle, you know, again, a few roles that we know if we create the supply, that we can use that as a kind of selling proposition, and even get more fine-grained about what the program experience, exactly that content, the assessments, that staging, that's really where we're looking for help.
Is there opportunity with this grant funding effort to do any sort of like a paid ideation group or survey of sitting down with contractors and buying some of their time to share on these sorts of things? You know, I know that it, you know, on the face of it, it's, you know, it's an expensive endeavor, but sometimes just something small to get their attention and get that opportunity to hear from them what they're really struggling with. You know, we may learn that, well, plenty of people come in who have no skills and that's what they need, but they're not interested by the pay. Those entry-level jobs are too low paying, and so they struggle to keep somebody in it. Well, that may redirect away from a skills training to, can we provide some sort of a stipend or a pay subsidy to help bring folks into the industry? I don't know, but you know, that's just kind of some of the things that I think about is how do we get that feedback from the industry?
We'd certainly put our heads together. We would love to surface that. So I don't know if it's something we could follow up with you on what that would look like. And yeah, we'd love to pursue that.
Well, I mean, I kind of chuckle because that was literally the purpose of this meeting, was to have contractors here to give us that kind of feedback, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So I think the next step is that Matt and Sean need to buy breakfast for a bunch of contractors at a distributor, and
we show up.
and we just ambush them. That's right.
Yeah, so
it'll be like last Friday.
That's the kind of thing that I think that we need to do. You're absolutely right. Like, and I think today's 9 faces or 9 boxes on this Zoom is a good indication of, you know, how valuable they understand this as right now, because, you know, we haven't made it exciting or interesting or appetizing to them yet.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from the experience working in the Excel programs that there's got to be a good reason beyond, oh, that'll be good information to get contractors to show up to these things. We run a couple of these kinds of meetings for program contractors every year. And if it's not something like, okay, if you don't show up, you won't be eligible to get the $200 rebate for the audit, or something along those lines. Breakfast is not enough. That's a nice start. But there's got to be some other little incentive that helps them drive their business or something like that for them to really show up for these things.
I want to put this in.
And I hate the term, but like, what's in it for me? If you think of it from that perspective, like, what would get somebody to show up? I mean, if you really put yourself in their shoes, then I think we start to get somewhere.
Yeah, we would love to do that.
And for some perspective, Xcel Energy had an extraordinarily low uptake on $300 rebates. It wasn't worth their time to fill out a piece of paper. So what value proposition do you have to get them to show up to this conversation? I don't think you are going to have them meet you where you're at. I think you're going to have to go to meet them where they're at. And it's probably going to have to be one-on-one, contractor by contractor, phone call by phone call. You're going to have to pester them a little bit. But I think the most valuable bit of information we can get out of this is find out what's working for them now. And I think we can all guess at what's working for them now. But and in the conversations that I have with them, it's, Joe had a buddy and
Sure.
they showed up and that person liked the culture of the company and they're great. Or Jennifer was a referral from so-and-so and she came in, she was in the Army and she's beating everybody else on the block right now. She's awesome, right?
That's a good reminder, because when we first started, I thought that's what I had talked about, that the best, it's like if you go to the contractor and they say, okay, here's the Gonzalez family, right? And then they bring in their friends. And I would go to the contractor and say, when you want to bring in a friend, send them through our orientation first, so that you end up with a more retention in that group and a little bit more oriented before they come in. Like that would, to me, is the loop that I think we would have the most uptake on, doing it that way. I can tell you too, when we did the Colorado Energy Office research, contractors stayed on the phone for me an hour and 45 minutes. And I was like, whoa, I can't, but that's because when I started talking, it was about what they cared about, and they could, somebody was going to listen to them. So one-on-one, I feel like you can get, once they're in, they'll sit there and chat, but you won't get them again, right? On your second call, you get one shot to get all that information, and they want to give it to you, right? So I think, just even from my experience, that makes sense. And those 3 contractors that signed up that didn't show up today, I bet you if we pick up the phone and I talk to them, I bet you they will talk to me. You know what I mean? I think you'll get that information that you want. And, but you gotta, yeah.
I think it's critical. You're absolutely right, Patricia. And I think it's critical to find out, just get a summary of what's working for them today. Find out where those folks are coming from. If they're coming from a different trade, if they're coming from a different part of the country, if they're coming from, family, just a job change or whatever, or if they are actually having any success with the trade schools that are out there now, right? Because there are trade schools that are training people, putting them out into the field. And I think that that's a pretty hit and miss kind of scenario. But if you can find somebody that is going through trade school, they are self-selecting themselves in a big way by going through that effort, putting in that time and that money. So I think it shouldn't be discounted.
And I think, but that's that uptake that Daniel's asking for, which I think this makes a lot of sense. But we also need to find out, what are the 6 jobs that your HVAC contractors need to hire for, and what do you need them to know before you hire them when they come in for their interview, right, Daniel? That's what you're after right now, is that to help you develop curriculum. Is that right? That's what I was.
Again, maybe we use less the curriculum language than what is it they just need to have or know, or what, because it's not as formalized as the, training competencies. But yeah, that's or we were thinking about it's kind of the minimum viable candidate that somebody's excited to hire.
But is that something we could right now take a stab on? What are the 6 roles that a HVAC?
Yeah, I was actually just going to try to feed into that. Meeting with Save Home Heat last week. It was a good conversation, and they're an employee-based company, so they don't subcontractor out. They bring in helpers, and they have people go out and help in the field just so they can see and get a sense of what's going on. There's no level of responsibility necessarily. You're slinging tools and bringing stuff to and fro. And then when they talk with their lead tech, and say, where are they at? When they're ready, then they can start to participate in the service work. So it's helper and then service team. And that's doing, sorry, not service, I apologize. it's installs, rough installs, right? So you're just going through the iteration of rough installs, whether it be an existing home or new home or what have you, but you're helping out on that install side of a thing.
Assistant installer.
Assistant installer, yep. And then there becomes a branch at that point. You can either stay on the install team, or you can move into the service team. But you're really only going to get into the service team if you've got that diagnostic mindset, right? And you have the field experience and so on. So that's probably somewhere up the chain a little bit further. I don't, and then there's obviously, you don't necessarily have to go out in the field, right? You can work in the metal shop, right? You can do tinning in the metal shop. You can do stuff like inventory, loading trucks, those kinds of things for sure, because that all has to get done. Or a runner. Sometimes companies have runners that are just going and it's like that auto parts truck that you see driving down the road. They're just dropping off a truck or a part to an auto repair shop or something like that. So it kind of goes back to the aptitudes piece.
And when would they go through? So if ICAST is doing the training to become a tech, like in that scenario,
We're training to make them assistant installers. That's what we're trying to do.
that's what you're doing. That's what I was wondering.
Move them from helper to assistant installer.
Okay.
Source them into the helper position, have them there for a little while, some period of time that works for the company, and then help them move to that assistant installer as quickly as possible, right?
Somebody who can identify all the parts, understand what the installer is doing, why he's doing it, why he needs help. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Go grab the proper bottle of refrigerant,
Go grab the flaring tool.
Go grab the flaring tool.
That's a Dykes. That's not a flaring tool. You need to know what a flaring tool is.
And remember it. like have that aptitude where you're like, okay, I get it. I don't understand what it does. How can I even figure out what it is?
Well, just with an eye on time, that's a super helpful way to I think, I know we're at our scheduled time. Sean and Matt and Chris, thank you very much for showing up for this. We'd love to follow up on some of these themes, but Sean, thank you for all the links. We'll check all of that out. And Matt, any other advice on where we can follow with Patricia about what's in it for them, how to broker that effectively. And Rob, thank you for your pointers as well. So yeah, Patricia, we put our heads back together and stay in touch.
Yeah, you bet.
So
One final thing I wanted to add.
Oh yeah, please.
I was just going to say,
add just one other quick thing, and that's with following up with or connecting with the dealers individually one-on-one, like Patricia said. You get those hour and 45-minute conversations. You're also likely to get perhaps more honest answers rather than being asked in front of their competition. Something that we have learned as a manufacturer and talking with our distributor partners, with our dealer network, our contractors, we get better answers if we ask them individually. Even, with a written survey versus, something in a crowd. So just to kind of tack on with that, it was just one final thing I wanted to add there.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt.
So I posted in the chat a YouTube video that I ran across this week that I've shared with our whole staff. And I think it covers the concept of heat pumps and heat pump adoption better than anything I've seen. It's funny. It's about a half an hour long. He covers politics. He covers weatherization. He covers the barriers to entry. Anybody who's touching heat pumps, you'll learn something from this. So
awesome.
Just thought I'd share. You bet.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Patricia, for bringing everyone together. Yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, thanks you guys very much. Yeah, I feel like this could be really exciting. So we want to, it is a pilot, so we'll iterate as we go. But I envision, what if we could send X amount of people to their front doors on a monthly basis and then have overflow to go where? Like that would be pretty amazing and more, more qualified, right? To get a little bit more retention. So that's what I'm thinking about.
One last piece to add in, and I know everybody has to, if you have to go for it. These companies have safety meetings generally, and you probably, if they don't, you probably want the ones that do have the safety meetings.
Exactly.
And those are great times because you got a mix of attendees in those meetings. And if you can ask them, say, hey, we're looking at starting a new program. We want to start it off right. If we can attend your safety meeting, just ask the group, just 5 minutes, get a feel for where they're coming from, where they're going, what's working for y'all, etc. It's probably a great way to quickly get a bunch of opinions and insight from from that particular company culture, etc.
So that's exactly what we did. We'd go in at 6:30 in the morning, we'd give them the predictive index assessment, and we literally would take the installers and we would not have any management involved. It was only the installers, and it was shocking the stuff that they would tell us. Yeah, it was spectacular. And then we would pick, in the group, I'd say, okay, we're going to pick 3 things that are most important to change in your company. And we take it back to the upper management and say, if you don't change at least 2 of these, you're going to lose their confidence in you. Like, that was our deal, and it worked. It was spectacular, the stuff that got solved and fixed in those meetings. Yeah. I forgot about all that. It's been a while.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Anything else? Last words, last rites before we go.
Good evening.
Have a good afternoon.
All right. Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you
Take care,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks very much,
Appreciate it.
everyone.